Today's Garden Side Chats. I'm so sorry that it's a little late today. We've had some technical issues, so thanks for hanging in there with us. Hi everybody. Welcome to CCUA's Garden Side Chats. So sorry it's a little late. It's 2:15 or it's 12:15 instead of 12. I had some technical issues. Isn't that how it is these days? Everyone using the internet and it just isn't seeming to work all the time. So my name's Tamara, and I work for CCUA, and I have been helping carry out by doing some kitchen side chats on Wednesdays. So today, for a little bit of a garden kitchen side chat, I'm going to show you how to make your own vegetable chips. I do make my own vegetable chips pretty often, but I do it for kind of a weird reason. My husband and I are backpackers, so we dry a lot of our own food for backpacking, and so we make the vegetable chips, but then we take those vegetable chips and we rehydrate them. But something I started doing the last couple of years is right before I compost something, if I feel like, you know how when you're going through the fridge and there are some vegetables in the back of the fridge that you don't think you're going to use before they go bad? I've been trying to take those vegetables, things like, you know, carrots that are starting to get soft. I had a couple of zucchinis that I was going to make zucchini bread with, and then I didn't end up doing that. So those things that we just don't want to waste because it's just so important to like eat everything we have. So I take those kind of things and I slice them up and I dehydrate them into a chip. So I'll show you what I mean. So these are zucchini chips I made a while ago. And they're thin and they're crispy, and I'll show you. Hopefully you can hear that. They have a nice crispy bite. And the thing about the zucchini chip is it's super sweet almost. And I didn't even put anything on these. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of seasoning. But with these, they're just plain old zucchini chips. They're just raw. I cut them and I slice them and I put them on my dehydrator. But I'm going to show you how to do both the dehydrator version and the oven version of that. They're similar, they're just a little bit different. So yeah, so if this gives you an idea of kind of what today is going to be about, these are my zucchini chips. So this is surprisingly 3 zucchinis worth of zucchini chips. I mean, it's actually not that much if you really think about it. But they make a great snack. I know that kids really like them. It's just a little bit different. It kind of breaks up the monotony of eating vegetables, so it's kind of fun to eat them like this. The nice thing about it, too, is I actually have a pot boiling water right here. I am going to show y'all how, if you had those veggie chips, and let's say you have a bunch of, like this summer, you have a bunch of zucchinis, or you have a bunch of squash, or you have a bunch of something that you just don't even know what to do with, but, you know, you obviously want to use these beauties, is you could dry these. You could obviously can them, you could freeze them too, but if you wanted to dry them, you could dry them in something like this and store them in like a mason jar. And the nice thing about this is then I can save this for 6 months, maybe even longer. I could probably save it for a year if I took this mason jar and I put it in the freezer. And then they're still going to have the crispness, the color, the taste. And then if we wanted to, we could rehydrate them in water. And I'll actually show you how you want to do that. So if you want to make these for a snack, great. But if you want to make them and save them for a soup, a stock, they're great in spaghetti sauce. You could do something like this, and then you could throw them right in to your pasta water while you're making your pasta. So that's always an option. So if you don't have a mandolin, they're great. You don't need one for this. You could definitely use a knife. I will say, if you're going to use a mandolin, be careful. I always cut myself with this. So I've been very, very diligent about teaching myself what to do and using the safety, which is what they're there for. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your vegetable, whatever you're going to use, and make sure you peel it, and like if it has seeds or something like an apple or things like that, take the seeds out and all of that. You're going to take the vegetable like this, and you're going to take your mandolin, or if you have a knife, and you're going to cut them pretty thinly, as thin as you can get without seeing. You don't want to see through it. You want it to be fairly thin, kind of like we saw with these veggie chips. We want them to be thin, but we don't want them to be like so thin that they're going to like shrivel up into nothing. So I'll kind of show you what I mean. So I put this on a 3, and again, be very careful with your mandolin. So I'm only going to do a few here, because as I mentioned earlier, you really can't be trusted with this thing. Okay, so this is kind of what the size that you're wanting. So that's like a thin size, it's perfect. I do them at an angle, truly just to get them to be a little bit bigger and nicer, because when you dehydrate these, they're going to turn into basically nothing. So there are those. Little carrot guys. And so you cut up all your vegetables, and the one thing you want to remember is to make sure that they're all the same size. It doesn't matter what size they are, but keep them consistent. So if you were going to do something like a zucchini chip, if you want to do apples, anything like that, you're going to want it like a squash, anything like that, like a yellow squash or something, you're going to want them to be the same size. So the thinner you get them, the faster that they're going to cook for you, or they're going to dry. So if you are going to use the oven, you'll want to take a cookie sheet and put some sort of a baking mat or a piece of like the parchment paper or something like that inside. If you don't have that, you could spray it lightly with like a cooking spray or an olive oil, but like really, really lightly, because the number one thing that kind of makes a dry food go rancid is fat. So that's why a lot of times if you see a jerky or something like that, it either has a lot of preservatives or it has like no fat, because if it did have a lot of fat, it would spoil very quickly. So you're going to take your little chips and you're going to lay them out on here. I'll show you what I mean. And then if you're doing it in the oven, if you're doing this on a dehydrator, same thing. You're going to still cut them. You're going to still lay them out on your dehydrator tray. The biggest thing that you want to remember is just if you're using an oven, never leave the oven on while you're asleep, and never leave the oven on while you're gone. I know it's a really low temperature. We're going to turn our ovens to the lowest temperature we can get them to. I think like my oven's 170. Some ovens go to 150, but you always want to be home. But this is a perfect time to do this because we're home. We're home all the time. So it's a perfect thing to do if you're working from home or you have to homeschool the kids, to like wake up in the morning, turn the oven on the 150 or 170, the lowest setting, throw these bad boys in there. And if you can, if you don't have any little kids or animals, keep the oven cracked just a tad, because we're not really cooking the chips. We're trying to dry the chips, which is what a dehydrator does, is it has that fan in there and it's circulating the air. If you have like one of those metal like trays, like an air fryer tray, you could set in this to get that air circulating. That would be good too. I've seen people set their vegetables or their meat right on the oven tray. You can do that, but it's just more of a mess to clean up, you know. I'm like simple. I don't want to make a big mess. So whatever you want to do, just remember you really need that air flowing. So in any way that you can get that air flowing, whether or not that's putting this on like one of those trays over the cookie sheet. If you have an air fryer, a lot of air fryers have a dehydrating setting. So anything like that. And then it's going to take about 6 to 10 hours to dry these. In a dehydrator, it could go a little bit faster. I'm thinking about 4 or 5 hours if you do a chip like this. If you do something thicker, like more of a square or something, or like a bell pepper, and I'll show you on bell peppers. So believe it or not, this was 8 bell peppers. And I'm actually drying this because I'm a backpacker, so I'm making a bunch of meals with it. But normally you wouldn't have this many extras laying around. So this, if you can even believe it, that was a long slice of bell pepper like you'd have in a fajita, and it just shriveled up to basically nothing. It's crazy. So like if you're going to do a bell pepper or something like that, they don't take very long. They take about 4 or 5 hours. But yeah, again, it's the same method whether you have a dehydrator or an oven. So you're going to dry it. The thing you're going to want to look for when you're getting them out of the oven to check them, I check them a couple times, like maybe 2 hours in, check them, and maybe again at 4 hours and so on. If you want it to do this, and I'm going to put this by my microphone so you can hear it. Did you hear that break? We want it to be real brittle. That means they're done. If it has any kind of like softness and it kind of just bends, it's not done. Put it back in for an hour or so. But yes, we want it to break. We want it to crumble up. I don't know if you see this or not, but it's like crumbling up into nothing. That's exactly what we want. That means this thing is bone dry and there is no moisture in there. The thing about moisture is if we leave moisture in, you could totally do that if you're going to cook with it in the next couple of days, or you're going to eat them as snacks, like, you know, tomorrow when you're going to the park or whatever. But if you want these to last for a long time, you got to get all that liquid out. So it's really important. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's seriously that easy. But I was going to show you, let's just say you have a bunch of squash or something this summer that you need to get rid of, that you want to save for something. What you could do, and you don't have to be a camper or a backpacker or anything, you could just literally be at home and you could have all these yummy, delicious vegetables. Like I'll show you this one. These are vegetables that I've dried out of kind of scraps. It's like here and there I had like a carrot. I had some mushrooms, like the mushroom stems that were going to go bad. Just things like that. Spinach. I think there's some broccoli in here. If you have anything like that, you could dry it, you know, and then you could save it in a jar for 6 months. Put it in the freezer, a year, 2 years. Really, I think the only thing that's going to happen is it's maybe going to break down that nutritional value. But other than that, it really doesn't taste bad. It's crazy. It's really crazy how how good it tastes. So I'm going to show you. So I just had a little bit of water boiling, and I really don't have that much water left. But you don't need a lot. So I'm only going to show you with a few chips, but I'm going to pretend like I'm going to make spaghetti. So let's pretend like this is like pasta water. We're throwing our spaghetti in there. What you could do, and I'm going to show you on a very small scale because I don't want to waste all these chips, and I'll still eat these. But you take your chips and you're going to put them into the water. And I may not even have enough water here now, but to give you an idea of what it looks like, I'm going to add a little bit more water. Sorry, being live, it's like you never know what's going to happen. Okay, so we added a little bit more water. I'm going to crank the heat here. So basically, I put those chips in. I only put about 5 or 6 chips in. But if you were going to make like spaghetti or something, you could take these dried vegetables and you could pour them right into that water with the pasta. Now, I wouldn't do it for the full 9 minutes or 10 minutes, like, you know, for spaghetti. I will probably do about halfway. So like when we're backpacking, we'll take vegetables like this and we'll throw them in with whatever we're making, like a soup or stew or whatever, or, you know, pasta. I do pasta a lot. The difference between backpacking and like being at home is I will half cook my pasta at home and then I'll dehydrate it that way to where it cooks faster. But in your case, if you were to make pasta at home for your family, you could just throw these right in with the pasta water. We'll pretend like there's pasta in here and it's all cooking together. I would do it about halfway, about 5 or 6 minutes in, depending on what kind of pasta you're using. You could throw it in. Same with soups and stews. Let's say you're going to make a crock pot meal. You could literally just take these vegetables and throw them right in. And not only are you reducing waste and eating all the goodness, but it doesn't take much time, and it's super eco-friendly. So this one is like spinach. I overbought this beautiful spinach that I ordered from Happy Hollow, and it was just so beautiful, but we just couldn't eat it quite fast enough because I had some other salad as well. So I just dehydrated the spinach. And what with spinach, I did blanch it quickly before I dehydrated it. I literally just took all of it, and I actually go over blanching in one of the prior videos. It's about freezing your food, but it's the same kind of concept. So I blanched it real quickly, and then I spread it onto the tray, and you can see. And this is a great example. I'll show you about how dry it is. It is like super dry and brittle. That's what we want. Totally what we want. So this gives you a good idea. And by the way, my hands are really clean. I washed them before this. Okay. So this is going to give us an idea. I'm going to show you. You saw how little these chips are. And they just dry up into nothing. So these are zucchini chips. I'm going to show you when I rehydrate them, if you were going to be recooking them at home, how you can deal with that. Now, if you want to get really fancy, prior one of our first videos that we did, it was on a Wednesday, and it was like a garden side, kitchen side chat. I showed y'all how to make fruit leather. Now, let's say in the summer you have a ton of beautiful tomatoes in your garden, and they're going crazy, and you want to make a bunch of tomato sauce. Great, and you could can the tomato sauce. You could totally go that way. But if you wanted to take some tomato sauce and you could spread it on either your dehydrator tray or your cookie sheet, you could dry that into a fruit leather, which is, it's not fruit leather, it would be a tomato leather. I would highly not recommend eating it as a leather, but what I do is then I take that leather and I put it in a food processor, and I blend it up into a powder. And I'll show you. I blend it up into a powder, and this is literally just pasta sauce powder. And I would obviously not eat this by itself. It would be like extremely concentrated. But the nice thing about this is like I can just rehydrate this with water, or let's say I wanted to flavor something, I could put a little scoop of this in there and flavor it up, and it would be really, really tasty. So that's always an option. With the fruit leather, watch my fruit leather video. The tomato, if you were going to do some tomato product, it's the exact same steps as you would with fruit leather. The one thing I'll tell you is it gets really dark when it dries. Just the tomatoes with the heat and everything, it gets really dark. When you blend it up, it doesn't look so bad. But when you're drying it as a leather, and I actually have an example here. This is my pasta sauce leather. So it looks a lot like fruit leather, and it breaks up really nicely so we know it's dry. But the color, see that dark color? It's not burned. It's just how tomato is when you do this. So don't worry, you didn't burn it. I just wanted you to kind of see what it looked like. But yeah, so basically I would take this tomato leather. I would throw it right into a food processor, buzz it up into a powder, and here we are. So pretty easy. Okay, so sorry, I was kind of wasting time because I wanted to get this to cook so I can show you what it looks like. Okay, so we're pretending like we're recooking this and we're going to eat it at home because these zucchinis were on their way out and I didn't want to lose them, so I went ahead and dried them at my house. So here we are. So I'll show you. It's just really cool. I mean, does that not look, I know it's kind of hard to see, but does that not look like just zucchini that you just cooked, like straight fresh zucchini? It plumps right up. It's really hard to see, but it plumps right up. And I mean, this is like, it's back, it's alive again. So it's crazy. I had this dried thing that I could store for 6 months to a year, and now it's this fresh, live zucchini piece. And I'm actually gonna, it's a little hot, so I'll show you, but I'm gonna eat it and just to show you that it's completely great to eat and it still has a good flavor. It tastes great. It still has a little bit of crunch, so you could cook it for longer if you don't like that. It really tastes great. And what's funny is that when you eat it dried like this, it tastes sweeter. Kids really like a chip, like a kale chip or something like that. But when you chew it up, it goes right back and has that delicious vegetable flavor. So like you can easily just cook with this. Like add it to pasta, like throw it in a soup. You could even, if you needed it for a recipe at this point, squeeze the water out of it. If you're going to cook with it, make like a zucchini bread. Squeeze the water out of it, use it as a pulp for zucchini bread. So it's that easy. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Thank you so much for catching today's Gardenside Chat. Sorry I was a little late, technical issues. But yes, my name is Tamara and I do the Wednesday Gardenside Chats. We're normally here in the kitchen and Carrie typically does the other Gardenside Chat. So thanks so much for being a fan of CCUA. We really appreciate you. If you'd like to check our website for other updates, we're doing kids contests and we have bowl sales and some other things going on. Please check our website at Columbia Center for urbanag.org. And you can check out on the main page. It's going to have all the different things that we're doing. And if you have a specific topic that you're really interested, like you really want to know how to grow tomatoes or something like that, check on our Facebook page. And then you can write on our Facebook page and tell us what you'd like to hear about. And we're really interested to help you out. We really appreciate it. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.